What's good, everyone? Hope you've been enjoying the Naruto scaling series because it's time to continue on our journey to finding where the series really and truly scales. That said, last video we ended on the army of empowered white Zetsu being a threat with kunai, but also being capable of being wiped by extremely weak attacks, and so we'll be picking up from there. So if you haven't seen prior videos of this scaling series, then like always, you gotta make sure you go back and watch those first. It puts everything into perspective as this is an exhaustive and exhausting scaling of the series from beginning to end. So on to Naruto. Beyond the white Zetsu, we can jump to Kinkaku and Ginkaku, two characters who have nine-tailed chakra within them, and were actually strong enough that with a team of a dozen plus other ninja, were able to kill Tobirama. Not only that, but due to the nine-tails chakra, they are able to wield treasures from the Sage of the Six Paths, which have very powerful hacks. We all should know the hacks by now, but to note, most of its power is in sealing besides the banana fan. And if you look at what the banana fan can do, you can see that it's putting out attacks around the same as base Sasuke's speed when he first rushed the Raikage and Darui there, based on Darui. With that said, it should be important to note at this time what is going on in the speed department for Naruto so that we're clear going forward. Sasuke, after losing full curse mark but with showings of growing power, we can honestly take his speed was still relative to his max speed of Mach 6 that he showed with the curse mark but lost. However, again, he continued to show growth, though that growth was really only shown with Susanoo. It's hard to say this led to any increases in speed with his overall growth, but what we do know is that the Raikage was faster than him, but not by much. Certainly not so much that he was even close to half a Mach speed faster than Sasuke, for example. And so we know Raikage at this point should have around perhaps Mach 6.2 move speed, maybe, but certainly Mach 6 plus. So just plus at the end. It's faster than base Mach 6. But then as Sasuke continued to grow his Susanoo, he also got wore out, we need to factor that in, and also never showed to actually be faster than the Raikage. So all of these are true things. The reason I'm pointing this out is because the Mach 6 metric has been following us for a long time now, and I want to address this, okay? There has been not a single feat shown thus far that necessitates anything faster than Mach, say, 6.5, with all feats and scaling factored in. You can only get faster than this number by taking statements with no proof as true. But I don't want anyone wondering why Mach 6 has come up so much or continues to come up, and here now with the banana fan, we have Darui reacting with around the same level of reaction speed as with base Sasuke of then, aka around Mach 6. So, keep all this in mind because I'm looking like a hawk for any feats or scaling that gets us to the next level, such as Gaara-san, which, he actually showed a great speed feat. But back to the fight. We see the sealing power of the treasures, and we get to see the attack speed of this level of fighting. Bottom left, we have Kinkaku already mid-swing against Darui, who is 100% slower than the Raikage in all speed departments, at least as the story is written, and absolutely no feats or scaling that put him faster than Raikage or many others in attack speed. So, yes, he technically could be just as fast as the Raikage, but there is nothing to suggest that he's faster. This is important because despite Kinkaku being mid-swing, Darui is easily able to swing through Kinkaku and bring his arm quite the distance around. This is going to be scaling to everybody, even all the way to Tobirama. So Darui is showing to be easily 2 times faster in attack speed here, not higher than 2, because he'd only need to swing to the point of impact on Kinkaku's arm for Kinkaku's arm to stop moving as well. So we can't just count Darui's full arm motion versus Kinkaku's interrupted arm motion. Okay? So this is all factored in is suggesting extremely relative combat speed to higher tier movement speed. So that is good. That's a good metric to understand and have. I'll be keeping an eye out for him, and I'm talking about Darui here, to see if we get anything really solid for his speed, as Ginkaku and Kinkaku will not be showing any speed feats or scaling to suggest they are fast in the verse. Instead, we get more showings in the power of the treasures rather than their own power or speed, and we do get to see that the ceiling leaves time for those being sucked in to not only react, but to contemplate even. At least for those with Darui's level of speed. Next, it's right there, clear as day. Note, the Zetsu once again are getting bodied by complete nobodies once more. Past that, we then get to see that due to Darui being apologetic, he's got the brothers cornered and has 2 of the treasures. We then get to see a full scale of the sub-building level showing for Laser Circus. This isn't to say, of course, that its AP can't be hyper-universal or anything else. You know, its AP could be anything. But as yet, this attack just doesn't have any feats or scaling to put it higher than even far earlier Razengans or Chidoris. Maybe Biju mode Kinkaku will give us something. Nope. Now we see Choji's father can react and catch an attack from him. Definitely not fast. So, give me some speed, alright? That's what I'm looking for. Well, hey, look what's next. Mabui. And she can send things at the speed of light, which is later backed via the ceiling jar being sent extremely far away. And it actually showing to arrive near instantly. Once we get to her sending some people, you know who, I'll address it more in depth. But for now, all we need to know is that Kinkaku shows no good feats and is ultimately defeated not by power, not by speed, but by ceiling. So that's why we can skip ahead with nothing to scale. As for where to jump next, we can then go to the poison of Hanzo's summon taking immediate effect on Kankuro and the others. And we see Mifune is needed to save them. I've talked about poison in my last videos. Here's we're going to actually be making some headway on where the poison scales for the series. So this is all here, what I'm showing with this is only to show that it is very consistent now that poisons aren't resisted almost ever. After that, we can jump to some scaling for the samurai fodder. How strong are they? Well, considering we're talking Kimimaru not going all out, they're far weaker than beginning of series Lee, as he ends up fighting off and beating a large battalion of them, let alone how he showed, 1v1 against like Lee. Next, the series takes us back to Hanzo, and here again I'll be covering some basics. Hanzo could fight all 3 Sannin of the past, though not at their prime. He also beat Mifune of the past, though also not Mifune in his prime. But we also can see that he was taken out by Pain, and without a single one of Pain's bodies taken out. This puts him clearly below the older and more experienced Jiraiya that we saw fight Pain. This also then shows as he fights Mifune at this point in the story that Mifune is extremely relative to Hanzo in nearly every stat, but with enough of an edge to still cleanly win. This too would suggest Hanzo as clearly below the aged Jiraiya. Now, back to poison in the verse. We've established that no one shows impressive poison resistance. But we never get to see poison work on one person and then perhaps be overcome by someone stronger or anything, to show or suggest any progression in perhaps later poisons working or not. They just always work. But what we're missing is an idea of how strong these poisons are. Because they always work, therefore we don't know if they're strong and they actually have high resistance but it works anyways, or if they're really weak poisons and they just have no resistance. It just always works against these characters. So finally though, we can address that more clearly. For Hanzo, perhaps the most poison resistant character thus far, though Orochimaru could obviously be first as well, we have to look at what is making for what is an extreme poison of the verse. That thing would be a basic black salamander that has deadly toxins. So, very deadly, yes, but nothing provably beyond our real life levels of deadly, that are actually suggested or provable here. This isn't a summon or anything. This is a normal, animal in the world. So, this is what's constituting some of the highest levels of poison, and this would apply to all other poison feats involving Naruto and everyone else. That's not good, obviously, but it's got to be pointed out. Now, moving on beyond this, the story takes us to Asuma versus his students. Let's see what else we can find. Now, out the gate, we get confirmation of Choji being the slowest of the team. To no one's surprise. And you have to understand, Ino and Shikamaru aren't exactly fast, but they still manage to avoid Asuma's attack. And as they fight, they manage to overcome Asuma pretty easily with teamwork, where it's Choji that just can't hit him, leading to him being kicked away. We then see Asuma follow the kick with a ranged attack, but note where Choji would be in relation to Ino here, because it's not very far, and this really is quite the slow speeds for everyone involved. I mean, Asuma at one point even gets intercepted physically by base Choji. And I said base because next we get Butterfly Choji, so here we go. Hopefully we're getting something, right? At this point, not only does he go full power, but he even concentrates all the energy into his fist. So don't listen to those that think total energy is what matters. Him concentrating that total energy into a smaller volume means something. It means a lot more potency in equal contrast of old volume to his new volume. And it's here we see absolute full power Choji one-shots Asuma before he gets sealed. The problem, however, is that the feat we just witnessed from absolute full power Choji is way weaker than still the Sakura feat we got versus Sasori. The entire rock side Asuma hit didn't even explode. Where Sakura would annihilate this feat, or Sakura did annihilate this feat. Unironically, Sakura of way back then would be putting out many times more force. Honestly, Tintin with the banana fan may be more of a threat. Well, okay, never mind. What could you expect from Tintin, right? Besides being able to kill the now empowered White Zetsu, at least. So, there's that. Moving on, next up is the Ten Tails at its weakest. That's important to note, at its weakest. Here we can see Choji give a huge punch like he did to Asuma, and the Ten Tails easily blocks it. Though, he better, it's not very strong. Much more impressive is that the Ten Tails can blow away these two with just a flex as he releases energy. Hey, I think we finally have something to calc. First, we're going to find a scan with the most clear panel for finding Choji's height, and when we do, it comes to just over 1080 centimeters. Next, we can see that Choji and his father are a near identical height. Follow this up with the fact Choji's father, in clashing with the Ten Tails, shows to have a near direct head-to-head in height, and that gives us around the same 1080 centimeters from his head to feet to use. I'm talking about for the Ten Tails. When looking at his AoE, as the Ten Tails, he's the one in the epicenter of the blast, so no depth shenanigans here. We can get the true size. He's the one we need the height of to figure the radius of this blast. And doing just that, we find that if we were to pretend the entire release here is a sphere, we'd get this many total joules or city block level total joules. That means not only that there are no gaps in the AoE like air and empty space, which is abundantly filling the space around the feet, but that both above and below the ground, I'm talking a sphere, not even a hemisphere, a full sphere, I'm taking as total volume of fragmentation. Because that's what it is. It's fragmentation. It's not pulverization. It's not cratering. It is clear fragmentation. All of it as if it was a sphere. City block level total joules. As for the AP, it's unknown because it's just a large AoE. But what we can get from the AP is that only a portion, a very small portion of that total joules was able to enact itself upon Choji and his father. And it still blew them away. That means the potency of what they faced was but fractions of the total force of city block level. Even if you acted like every bit of rock was instead explosively fragmented, this is still an absolutely terrible feat for all parties involved due to just how little the potency is enacted on Choji and his dad, factoring in the low durability of the verse in general, while sending them flying, so very low potency actually is enacted on them. They didn't take but portions of the total force. Still sent flying while having garbage total joules to begin with for even the point of the series itself at this point right here. Briefly, I will mention that we do see another feat by the Ten Tails, but we have no idea of the level of destruction for 1, but specifically the scope for 2. If we have no idea how large nor to what level the destruction was, we have nothing to calc. Add in that it's multiple attacks and not just one, and we're not getting impressive AP, so that's something I can tell you there. But hey, while I know it's a C of honestly pretty bad feats, I hopefully have a great feat coming up, with some lower ends before then, but hopefully we get a great feat. Let's get to some KCM1 scaling again. First off, we can see clearly that Naruto is serious, and he sees it as urgent that he gets to the battlefield to help save as many people as he can. You should remember this. I'm using 1 scan here. This is important because A comes in as the large obstacle to getting there. So when Naruto shows his speed versus A actually knocks him away. And does so while not going all out. Naruto even asks just to be let pass. Okay, well, once that fails, we see Naruto perhaps get even more serious, I guess. And this time, they're just matching in speed. Alright, that tells us they're around that Mach 6 plus speed. In fact, it's here we can see A versus Minato. We can see outright that Minato's actual speed isn't close to A or KCM1 Naruto, and he 100% needed teleportation to get away. This is the person that everybody's comparing him to. Naruto, that is. Okay, so back to Naruto, because he's actually faster than Minato at this point too. Back to Naruto and trying to get past, and nope, he failed again. Once more. Another failure. B's even helping. So now it's like a 2v1. The guy's got 1 arm. And shoot, at one point, Naruto tries to get past while the one-armed Raikage is dealing with B. He's still stopped. All of this is before the Raikage has even gone all out. We'll finally be seeing Raikage attack Naruto with the same level of trying as he did against base Sasuke from the 5 Kage Summit. And here it is. Bam. One of the best, if not outright the best feat via scaling in the series. I'm talking about force speed. Naruto dodges the Raikage with pure speed, not teleportation, and does so with the fist being extremely close to his face and shows to be a good distance from him as he hits the rock wall. This is it, right? Just how fast is this? And is it an outlier against so many other feats that had just shown him not being faster? First, the speed. If we use the general scaling we've seen used for this feat, like 72 times faster up to 80 times faster, those numbers there that people have used. If we did that, we could easily reach Mach 496 here. And note, that number could be realistic. This feat is actually legit in terms of the distance he traveled within time frame. Speed is distance divided by time. The time that he dodged, with the speed of Raikage to the distance he traveled in that time. Yeah, we're talking almost like Mach 500 here. This is an extremely impressive number. Almost too impressive compared to everything, literally everything thus far. So, oh no, you see where this is going, right? Is this an outlier? Well, I'm very sorry to say, but yes, this is a poster boy of what an outlier looks like. Now, look, hear me out. I acknowledge that due to the Naruto community, the scalers and things, I'm hitting the series pretty hard. I'm pointing out every little detail that shows weakness. I get it. And now we have an amazing feat. I'm calling it an outlier. It's like, am I being biased, right? Because, yes, I'm hitting it hard due to specifically the amount of people who scale Naruto and they wank the series to ridiculous levels. So, I mean, I'm being very, very specific in looking at every feat, but I can only work with the feats and the scaling the series actually gives me. I already try to lowball everything anyways, because lowballing is good. I'm not downplaying is what I'm saying. So, don't get me wrong. But am I being biased? Because this is a legit feat, but outliers exist. So let's cover that. What is an outlier? It's defined as a person or thing. This is a feat, so that's the thing. A person or thing differing from all other members of a particular group or set. So, is this feat differing from all other members of a particular group or set of feats? Yes. Okay, well, let's keep going. When someone gets a new power-up, we have no basis, no group or set by which to judge, and so new forms of power with new feats can't be outliers. This is a true thing. This is what I'm trying to say. If you go like, hey, I'm city level, and then you get like a new power-up, Super Saiyan Mega God, on top of like just a city level person, who knows what the Mega God Super Saiyan power-up gives you? You can't say, no, he can't be, galaxy level because he was just city block level or city level or something, right? There's no feats to suggest, especially if he has the feat of destroying a galaxy, you can't say it's an outlier because he has the new form. So now I'll ask, is this the first showing of his new form for Naruto? I'm trying to give a way out. No, it's not the first showing of his new form. So what do the other feats show that we've been seeing in his form, since this isn't a new showing of his form? Well, all of those other feats, they all show he's either outright slower or straight matched in speed with the right Kage. And then there's even worse feats before that, but let's just stick with that. Now, additionally, are those consistent? Maybe there's inconsistencies. No, they are consistent. There's a multitude of scans showing so, literally right next to each other. Beyond this, how does this affect the scaling? Okay, maybe there's something there. Assuming Mach almost 500, if we were to take that, this would put things like Edo Itachi and everyone scaling to him in a point of what the hell just happened, because it actually would break the scaling. It would make absolutely no sense. If this is an outlier, everything still makes sense. So look, I know what this feat represents. And I know I've been pointing out all the bad, which has been almost everything because it's unironically been nothing but bad feats. This is why I've always had my feelings about where Naruto scales. It's really, really, when it's with the poison, for example, I truly think Baki characters have better endurance and durability than Naruto like high tiers at this point. Okay, I'm just saying, like, the feats and scaling speak for themselves, and so I can't help that I've been pointing out so many bad feats. All right, it's not my fault. I'm pointing out like everything. All right, I am really looking at like everything. I can't help that everything is bad. So I just want you all watching or listening to understand this is an outlier because it's actually an outlier and not because of any other reason. And no, I'm far from the only one to think this is an outlier. If you watch me and you're gonna, discredit me just because, I don't know, you don't know me or whatever the case, there's plenty of other big name whatever people that think the same. So if you need that for your own validation of thinking it's true or not, I don't ultimately care. All I'm trying to say is this is an outlier because it's an outlier. So I'm sorry, due to that, I can only give Naruto at his absolute best right now a movement speed of a little higher than Mach 6 still. But, okay, let's continue on because we have more Zetsu and the Edos of the other Jinchuriki. Maybe he'll hyper blitz them all effortlessly since they scaled so much slower than Raikage. Hint, hint, he doesn't. Let alone, again, the hypothetical Naruto blitz feat that I just said, no, there's a reason none of this works. That feat just doesn't work. Before we get to any of that, though, the Edo, Jinchuriki, and such, we'll be continuing in the order of this series. So that brings us to the Kages of the past. First up, Gaara's Mach 25 sand is fully capable of catching everyone but Mu with his amazing sensing. This then leads to a clash of Mu and Oonoki where we finally get to see this jutsu in action. And wow, what a feat. This looks like it may actually be promising. It's the first we've actually seen of this attack in terms of connecting with something, so there's nothing to contradict it, and even though it's a clash between two characters, we can scale something. So that's going to be nice. Hopefully we get some numbers and find out just how strong this is. And something I want to highlight before I delve into this, if you've noticed, I've been doing something new with AoE attacks, where if the AoE of an attack is showing that it would destroy evenly through the entire AoE, then instead of only calculating what was destroyed and saying that's the feat, as if that would be the limit to the total joules actually put out, I've been treating the entire AoE as having been able to do the level of destruction shown, but throughout the entire AoE, not just maybe, an example. Let me give you an example. So, if we have an attack that is a large AoE and it grazes a mountain, then sure, technically, I can only calc what was destroyed, and in doing so, due to it having missed majority of the mountain, not much of the mountain was destroyed, but that's only because it didn't hit. So I've been treating, okay, if the destruction is showing that what was destroyed didn't have any effect, didn't move or divert or slow down the attack whatsoever, and I'm confident that if it had squarely landed on, in this example, say the mountain, if we're talking about something like atomization or something, then I'm going to treat it such that the entire volume of the attack would be able to have atomized the material that it would have atomized in my example being having grazed rock of the mountain, right? So now it would, instead of atomizing just that section, atomize the whole volume. So to make that clear, that's what I'm doing. That's what I will be treating this feat as. It will actually make calculating it much easier, but not only is it easier, I also believe it also paints a far more accurate picture to the attack. So with that said, we can simply look at the explosion size itself, and we'll treat it as atomization due to the absolute extreme lacking of matter that's left over in proportion to the volume of destruction, because there is matter left up in the air, but when you consider the actual size and the amount of rock and sand that would have potentially been kicked up from the outer side of the sphere and not internally, the amount of explosion size to what is left, it's an extremely low amount. So I'm fine taking this as atomization. So we're looking at the explosion size itself. And when we do this, we find this many total joules or town level total joules. I was wanting more. The AP, of course, is unknowable other than it having at least enough joules per cubic centimeter to atomize rock due to the amount of destruction being a literal 1-to-1 ratio to the attack's volume, which means ultimately each half, Oonoki and Mu, would still be expected to have at least, this many joules per centimeter cubed for AP, because that's the number needed to atomize rock. So even though it did sand and rock, I'm treating it as like the whole volume was atomizing rock. So yeah, ultimately, I really wasn't expecting this. I honestly thought this was going to be a feat with impressive numbers. I mean, for the series, it's not like bad, but for what I was expecting, I thought this would, with atomization, really bump it up. But town level just ain't it. At least on, again, even just this is the total joule side. It just ain't it, let alone the AP. But it is what it is. That said, I do need to be stopping here. It's been long enough. I'll be making sure to continue on in the next video. So that said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more unique actual videos that are covering the in-depth scaling of different series. Right now I'm hitting Naruto, there'll be a lot more, but where we are following the triple AP scaling method, where we do necessary minimums, absolute truth values. That's what we're aiming for here. So I'll catch you all next time. Ciao.